Hi there, it's Carl Irwin, and this is just a quick video looking at resources for composition, theory, and arranging. A question came up on the YouTube channel about what were some good resources for learning the intricacies of composing music, the voice leading issues, harmonic structures and constructs, those various sorts of elements that are essential. I think the implication there is some issues with orchestration as well, which is vital to expanding out your compositions to ensembles, various types. So I thought I'd take a minute just to give you a few thoughts on some good resources. And this is not at all exhaustive because in today's world, the number of resources to learn almost anything is vast and extensive. And I'm talking about good resources. Certainly with the age of the internet, over the last 30 years, the amount of resources really to learn anything informational has just exploded, and the access is just very, very wide. Almost anybody can learn almost anything at a pretty significant depth with fairly little cost to them, with just kind of public access to the internet. However, I think it can be helpful to have something that is concise and is organized and to the point, that you can refer to. And that, I think, is where you get into some textbooks. I'll talk a little bit about just a couple of YouTube channels as well. Just a couple. There's so many great ones out there, but I'm just going to list a couple for you to look at, just a few resources. But in my education, these are the things that I kind of came up through in my collegiate learning when I was in music school. And that was some time ago, over 25 years ago. But I've got this one here. Is a book. It was actually a text for the theory curriculum, and it's by Thomas Benjamin, Michael Horvat, Robert Nelson. It's one of the big staple tonal. It's actually called Techniques and Materials of Tonal Music. It gets right to the point. And it looks like that. And this was the 5th edition. This is a textbook. So the textbooks can be somewhat expensive. This is a very old edition. I don't know what edition this is on, or if this even continues to survive. But you can get these used, certainly. This was the 5th edition. This is the 6th edition, which my wife used. She was a little bit behind me in music school, and it's very similar. This one's a little bit thicker, and I think actually in looking over them, and it's not just because I used it, but just comparing the two editions, I actually preferred this one. I thought this was much more concise and to the point, and did not venture off into the weeds. It tells you really what the conventions are, how they work. It gives you a few opportunities for exercise, and then it moves on to the next issue. So tonal music, techniques and materials of tonal music, originally the Thomas Benjamin, Michael Horvat, Robert Nelson. We knew it as the Benjamin Horvat Nelson, right, is what the book was. And that's one that I would recommend if you can find this. I do see that it's available used, or you can find an updated edition. But in terms of what's in the book, it starts at the very beginning, with the very beginning concepts of tonal theory, looking at the structures of scales, things that you would really learn in a high school theory class, or really in elementary school, to be honest with you. If you have a really good elementary music curriculum, some of the ideas in here at the very beginning are things that you learn way back at the beginning. So it does not have any kind of precondition in its organization. You really do start at the beginning, and then it works all the way up through tonal music, through classical romantic periods, and then you get into 20th century constructs much later on, and it will touch a little bit on a lot of things that are very closely related to the way contemporary film music is done today. It doesn't talk about film music specifically, but the 20th century techniques in there, in the last few chapters, hint on some of those constructs. Some other resources that I don't refer to very often, but I have them and I have looked at them occasionally. These are put out by Alfred Publishing. They're just small little pocket kind of dictionaries. They're essential dictionaries of, and then there's a topic. So this is an essential dictionary of music notation. My type of notation is quite traditional and standard, so I don't really, get into very complex kinds of notation. I don't write period music where I'd be looking at specific Baroque ornamentation and that kind of stuff. But occasionally you might run into something that you don't know or you've seen, but you don't know what it is. And this is a good place to reference a definition for it, how it should be used, what it should look like, and its various permutations. So that is Essential Dictionary of Music Notation. Another one is an Essential Dictionary of Music. So this is just about composers, theory, instrument, vocal ranges. It's just a very wide, broad kind of dictionary. It's actually the thinnest of the two, so it's very general in its terms. But you can learn about, music. If you've heard of a particular jazz style, but you don't know what it is, you can look it up in here and it will give you the very fundamental elements that make up what that style is. So that's the kind of thing. And you can look up instrumentation and it will give you very, very basic, Encyclopedia Britannica style kind of definitions for that. And then another one, and I hardly ever look at this one. The spine has not really even been cracked very much, but this is the Essential Dictionary of Orchestration. And a similar kind of thing is that it deals with instruments in particular, and it gives you their ranges, their likely uses, where glissandi is best placed on a violin, that kind of stuff. It really gets quite a bit more specific than, say, the Essential Dictionary of Music in terms of instrumentation and how various kinds of sound-producing instruments and voice should be used in its likely, basic, intermediate, professional ranges, and that sort of content. So this is stuff that I picked up really just in study and as an instrumentalist myself. So I don't have to refer to this very often. I kind of know the things that I need to know. But occasionally, I might find stuff I'm dealing with, harp, and I have to deal with pedaling or something like that, and I don't do that very often. Or organ, writing for a full pipe organ, and I need to know some specific things. I may look at this, and that's what it's for. And then here's another one. This is a very expensive book. I don't know if it's still in print. You probably can't see the title. It's called The Complete Arranger. This is by Sammy Nestico. This might be a little bit more controversial for some people. I've kind of heard two different takes on this. Some people say it's a great book. I've heard a few people say that it's kind of overrated and expensive. I have not referred to it very much. I don't really look up anything, again, because through the normal course of study and application, I kind of know what I feel I need to know. But what it does do is it goes through Nestico's feelings on how to arrange, particularly for jazz kinds of groups, but we're talking about like jazz orchestra. This would be a more contemporary type of orchestra that involves full orchestration, but really with kind of a jazz sort of grounding to it. It's Sammy Nestico after all, and that was really the kind of music that he worked in. And you'll find, again, information about ranges, other various paraphernalia that goes with instruments like mutes. How do you use mutes? What are they good for? What are some types of mutes that you might write for? So a lot of specific things that you might look at with the use of instruments and voice responsibilities. It deals with that, like what sorts of voice combinations work traditionally best, and what kind of interesting combinations you can use to get certain kinds of outcomes. But that's the book. It talks about writing melody and some ideas about how you approach writing melody. Again, it's got kind of a jazz bent to it, but that is The Complete Arranger. Now, if I were to say you need, any one of these things, I go here. You need a book like that. I think you want to get a collegiate text, undergraduate collegiate textbook that goes through really the whole of tonal music theory. And I think if you have that and you work your way through that, not very big, you can do this, I think, fairly quickly and efficiently, particularly if you know something about music already and you already have kind of those early chapters fairly well understood. But I think something like this, working on independently on a coursework through a textbook like this, will get you extremely far in understanding what the conventions of tonal music are. And then from there, you can really springboard anywhere. These are, as is stated in the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, Captain Barbossa is talking about the pirate code, and he says they're more guidelines than rules, right? And that's really what tonal theory is. These are guidelines. These are conventions that come about from practice. Historical practice, and with repetition, they become tendencies, and that is what is recorded in the study of music theory. But they do not necessarily outline the only thing you can do. Ultimately, when you're writing music, you need to write what you want to write, what sounds good to you, what you hear in here, and what you think here, and what responds well to you as you're writing. So that is really what you're going for. But this is a really solid, I think. It's not the only one. Like I said, some of you are going to say, oh, I hate that one. I think you should use this one. Whatever. You just need something like this. Something that is a comprehensive but concise study in tonal music. Other resources, as I said, we have the internet, and really with the internet, you don't need any of this. Some people might take issue with that comment, but it just frankly is true. All information that is known to man is on the internet, and if you're a discerning reader, you can really learn brain surgery on the internet. I don't recommend you practice it without a medical license, but there's so much you can learn with ease of access just from the internet. So if we go to YouTube, I would recommend the following two channels among all of others. I highly recommend Guy Mitchellmore, who is a media composer, and he is the head of Think Space Education, which offers some paid teaching in composition and arranging and media composing. But he has a channel, a YouTube channel under his name, where he teaches, film conventions in media composition conventions, mostly from digital audio workstations. He's working in DAW. And the nice thing about his channel is he's not terribly specific about DAW issues. He just says, look, open up the one that you have, and this is how you can write this type of music. This is how you can approach music for this type of media. And there's just a wide breadth of different videos on there. He's a very serious person. I know he's a lot of fun. He's funny. He's comical, and it's kind of a fun ride to watch his videos. But he's serious about what he's doing, and he really means it. And he's open. He's authentic. He's truthful about what he's saying. And oftentimes, when you're watching his studies on various techniques, you're really seeing a one-take rendition of what he's trying to do. So you get to see the warts and all. He'll go through, well, this sounds terrible. That's a mistake. You want to do this. You would change it in this way. I don't like that. This sounds like something I've already done. It's just a very realistic, clear, concise kind of education in composition. The second channel that I would highly recommend is Anne Catherine Dern. Anne Catherine Dern is another media composer, writes for film, has worked under some other fairly prominent composers. She herself has done some very serious work, and her channel is a no-nonsense kind of look at how various film conventions can be used. And she's very concise, and she very, very well brackets in a concept within one video without getting too tangential. So I highly recommend her channel and the playlists that she has on her YouTube channel. She doesn't frequent her channel very often. She's very busy and will come only occasionally to create something new. There's discussions about other issues related to hardware and just some philosophical things as well. But her studies in film music in particular and various conventions that are often used in underscore are very, very useful. And I think she explains it just very cleanly. So those are the two I would highly recommend. There are many others. I know many of you are going to say, but what about this person and that person? I just say that these two in particular, I have found to be, for someone who needs to know what they need to know, they're going to give it to you in a very clear, concise manner. The last one that I'll mention, and this is almost on the polar opposite because the amount of content on the channel is just so vast and some of it is so complicated. Really, his channel is College for Free, Rick Beato. And if you don't know about Rick Beato by now, you should. He's got a YouTube channel where he talks about a vast array of musical issues. He reviews songs, pop songs. He reviews what he has a whole section, I shouldn't say, it's a section, not season, about what makes a song great, and he gives you his analysis. But I would point you to, in his playlist, he has one that's titled Film Music or Film Scoring, I can't remember. And there's a whole bunch of videos on there. And the funny thing about it is that playlist is not specifically about film music. There are some videos on there that deal with film music analysis and orchestration, and mostly talking about them, not necessarily working through projects, but just explaining concepts. But actually, he talks about theory in many, many different avenues. He'll talk about modalities, keys. He'll talk about the way to use exotic scales and what they're good for. He talks about 20th century conventions and how they're applied to film music. He analyzes film scores and explains why they work. And why some don't work, and what particular film composers do, what are their tendencies. And there's just a ton of videos in there. Some of them are more concise than others. Some of them you'll get into and you'll say, I need to know a lot more before I can understand what he's talking about. But that is a really, really good resource if you are discerning and you kind of pick through the list to focus on the thing you're interested in the moment. So that's what I recommend. Get yourself a good collegiate theory textbook. One thing you could do is just go to websites where collegiate websites, university, music school websites, and find out what is on their theory course list for text. Oftentimes, a university, a music school, will pick a text that is used for the majority of the curriculum through several sections, like this book, right? So this takes you all the way through music theory, 1, 2, and 3, and it touches a little bit on 20th century techniques, and then when you get to that point, you probably get into something different. But you can look on their websites and find out what are they using. And then look up the pricing and see how many pages are in it. Does it seem concise? What are the reviews? Pick one of those and then read it. Work your way through it. You don't necessarily need a well-written textbook. Doesn't necessarily need a teacher to comprehend it. Certainly, teachers are very useful in explaining the details. But if you can read, I once heard, I think it was in a movie, it was a line in a movie. Someone's, there's a big discussion about someone brings some new information, and someone says, "How do you know this?" And the person says, "I can read." Right? That's the answer to everything. If you can read, get yourself a good book and work your way through it, and you will learn a lot. So those are my recommendations. Benjamin Horvath Nelson. If you can find one of these older editions, or if they're still making that, you can get that. I'm not really sure. Pocket dictionaries on various subjects. These are from Alfred Publishing. Essential Dictionary of. And they're fairly cheap, about $6 back when I bought these, probably under 10 now. And then if you really want to splurge, you can look into maybe the Complete Arranger, which deals a little bit more in jazz conventions with orchestra. Again, I don't reference this very much, but it's a popular text, kind of thick, somewhat comprehensive. It's Nestico's feelings on the topic, so for orchestration. Anyway, those are my recommendations. Good luck with that and happy composing.